Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name's Adrian. Today I'm going to give you my review of Temple of Spite, which is the latest expansion, well, the latest pre-release from Cubicle 7 for the amazing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. This is not quite the expansion I thought was coming. I thought after the High Elf, two books of the High Elves, we would either have a Wood Elf book or a full-on Dark Elf book. But this kind of fits in the middle of the Dark Elf books. It's got quite a lot of the lore, the background into Dark Elves, and, you know, talks about their island and some of the cities. But then it's more aimed at the Temple of Spite, which is this gigantic metropolis ship that sails across the ocean with other ships, that's just full of 7 amazing and very sort of unique factions, full of Dark Elves. Actually, there's lots of other people on there. So this is a campaign setting, a really dangerous antagonist you could put into an adventure. You could set it for, well, I think it's too big for one-shots, but you could have a little campaign, or this could just be the ongoing big bad. The book itself, because of the way Cubicle 7 writes them, it's got all the little hooks that you'll need for little adventures, but also we've got 7 factions, 3 different adventures with each faction. You've then got 2 other sort of campaign settings built within the book. So the key thing for me is I need to do this review as non-spoilery as possible, because I want games masters and players to watch this. So I will pre-warn you, there will be some mild spoilers, so just tread carefully. I say like I do with all these, I'm going to go through all the pages, show you what's within the book, but it's going to be more of a sort of overview of what's in there and where you can find the information for when or if you buy this. But first off, let's just jump over to the Cubicle 7 page. So here we've got the pre-order. You can get just the PDF if you want the PDF of Cubicle 7, or you can get it to Drive-Thru-RPG. I will link my Drive-Thru-RPG affiliate link in the video description, because obviously if you're going to buy just the PDF and you want to get through Drive-Thru-RPG and help my channel out, because I will be grabbing this at some stage, because Cubicle 7 never sends me physical copies for free because I'm not good enough or big enough, I don't know. So I end up buying all these anyway. Slight spoiler, I'm probably buying I've kind of said that I'm going to buy this. So here we got Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, Temple of Spite. So retail price is $32.99. So you've just got an idea of the front cover. As you can see here, the Temple of Spite is this gigantic ship that's just coming out of the mist in the background. I'll give you some idea of some of the artwork and the pages in the book, but let's just take you through the description, because one thing we never get on PDFs, Cubicle 7, I'm looking at you, physical books, it details the back of the book. PDFs, I don't know why you don't include the back of the book. It's really, really strange. But it's going to talk a little bit about the Dark Elves in here. But the main thing is they're Black Arks. So these gigantic weapons. And they say this is more of a flotilla as well. So you do have the Temple of Spite, but you've then got all the other ships that's traveling with it. But say within there, we've got the 7 different factions that have all got their own agendas, ideas. There's 3 sort of adventures, easy, medium, hard for each of the factions. Each of the factions then got its unique goals on there as well. So you've got all the rules in here to be able to set a campaign, and for the players, it's actually got the rules on how to get there. Oh, did I miss out? It's got dark magic. You can finally, you could learn it as a player if you wanted to learn the elven dark magic. But it's mainly for the Dark Elves to, you know, as a games master, to be able to play them. But obviously the Dark Elf magic comes with its own difficulties and corruption, let's say. But I think let's just get straight into the front cover of the book. I say I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but try and keep it as in-depth as I can without ruining it for everyone. Let's see if I can manage it. It comes in 128 pages, so I say it's 35, what's that, £33, what's that, I bet that's probably about $40 US, but saying that, when I look at US dollar prices, it tends to be equivalent, which never seems right with me. One sad thing about this has got review copies plastered all over it. So obviously, if you do buy the physical PDF, then you'd like to think it wouldn't come with that. So getting into the start of the book, we've got design and development by Dave Allen, Dominic McDowell, and Simon Wildman, and then a variety of people's writers, editors, producers, etc. So this is last edited on the 19th of February. We're going to get straight into the content. It's 128 pages in this PDF, but it's all hyperlinked, and it's going to take you through who the Dark Elves are. We'll then get a look at Naggaroth, the Land of Chill, Temple of Spite, the South, so that's the whole section, so 20 pages dedicated to this giant ship. The Bestiary on there, so there's different animals, and, well, I say animals, a lot of beasts and creatures in there, because one of the factions is specifically a Beastmaster faction. We're then getting the equipment and the ships, the dark magic, which you're going to love. And then we've got the 7 factions here from Valoron's Black Swords, the Foul Brethren, the Glass Thorn, Cain's Eyes, the Scale Flayer Menagerie, Beastmasters, the Company of the Nightwake, and then the Knives of Cain. Then finally, we've got 3 patrons and nemesis at the back of the book, and then you're into index. And that's it. I'd say that's it. There's a lot in here, but initially the book is going to start with the background in Dark Elves, their histories, the split and the Sundering, when the war began with the High Elves, and and when the Dark Elves were formed. We've got, what's that, about 8 pages of that. And then we're going to straight into Naggaroth, which is the Land of Chill. It's going to take you through the background of the island. It's got an incredible map in here, which is a lot more detailed than I was expecting. Obviously here we've got, just off to the right here is where the High Elves live. So you can see it's quite close. Details of religion, which is not, it's only sort of 3 paragraphs, but it does talk about Malerion and his rule, and obviously he is the main Dark Elf god. But there is a temple that shouldn't be on the ship, in the ship, which I thought was quite interesting. And I'm going to mispronounce it because I've always called it Tzench, but I'm not sure if it's pronounced that anymore. I'm sure Warhammer aficionados will be writing down in the comments below. We've got a little bit of details here about 7 of the cities that are in Naggaroth. As well as I say, throughout this book, we've got all these hooks. I got up to about 25 of the hooks that are in there, then I lost count. And I didn't sort of go back. But say all these hooks are, Cubicle 7 do these. These are little sort of plot hooks, adventure ideas, just to give the games master something else in addition to the sort of campaign settings that's in here, different adventures that's going on. So that's all your background and your lore into Dark Elves, which I actually found quite interesting because I read the High Elf, well, I've got the High Elf book, so I've read through the High Elf book, so I didn't know a huge amount about Dark Elves in here. And then we're going to get straight into the Temple of Spite. But one of the big things that you remember when we're going through this is it is a fleet, okay? So as much as this is a Black Ark enormous floating citadel that's actually made of rock, which I couldn't get my head around. Dark Elf magic is the way it works. But yeah, this isn't just one ship, and there isn't just, well, there is obviously one Temple of Spite, but it was going to quite quickly take you through other notorious Black Arks. So we got like the Palace of Oblivion, the Citadel of the Esoteric Damnation, and it was just going to take you through the backgrounds, the histories of when they were formed. But taken to the background of the Temple of Smite, this originally was a fortress. And then during the Sundering and the war that happened with the High Elves, this basically broke away, and through Elven dark magic, they turned it into a ship. And now this ship just floats around the seas, attacking anything, really. There was quite a famous mutiny here. So Captain Carathar Mancleaver attempted a mutiny in 2507. Needless to say, it wasn't very successful. And Duriath Helbane, the current captain, managed to fight it off. So he is still in charge. We will get his stats towards the end of the book. And he's one of those that can be either patron or a nemesis, depending on how you as a games master want to work them, I suppose, or how the players interact with it. We'll then talk about some recent voyages. So they went off to the east and fought against the Lizardmen. They then went back to the west and headed into Lustria. They then fought against the Norse. It tends to, when it tends to attack mostly coastal places, but sometimes the Dark Elves will disembark and actually go down the rivers and stuff on other ships. We again get this really cool map of the Temple of Spite, which then covers, you get an idea of the Temple of Cain that's in here, the Vanguard Spires, all the way up to the Chain Spires and the Nexus Sanctum, which is where the captain lives. It's got all the different lodges in here. And then as we go down into the depths, you're going to see things like the reservoir, an arena that I think it's 200 people in the crowd that can see, all the way right at the bottom of this hidden Temple of Slaanesh. Well, it's not hidden. They know it's there. But, Malerion doesn't really like people following Slaanesh. But they have managed to get their own temple. So you can see just how deep it sits in the water here. Hence the reason why it can't get into rivers. And then there's just a little ship just off to the right-hand side just to get the idea of scale. The opening line of the anatomy of the Ark is pretty much what you're going to need to cover it. So it's an immense labyrinth of stone, the city unto itself, filled with countless halls, winding staircase, and shadowed by corridors. It's an ancient and oppressive, with the original fortress of Alith Khan intact at the heart of the newest structures that loom over the flagged courtyards and decks. The rest of this section is then going to take you through the different areas, the Stalker's Spire, the Venom Blade Hall. So all the different factions have got their own areas that they're going to sort of live and interact with, which is all talked about here. Then we get Valeth's Palace as well, which is a complex of lower towers and halls. We then get the Great Hall here, where people sort of eat and socialise. But it's the depths that are slightly more interesting for me, because we've got the cells here, and each cell houses between 20 to 100 inhabitants chained, because when we start getting into factions, you'll see what some of the factions are going to do. So we've got this arena with over 200 spectators, where the pirates and warriors and corsairs all fight. The beast pen, so this is where all the bestiary and all the creatures are going to come in. Obviously the reservoir, and then finally we get the Temple of Slaanesh right at the bottom. From the power and politics point of view, there are two councils that run the ship. So we've got the Council of Reavers, which is an assembly of the Corsair captains represented the fleet. And then we've got the Black Convocation, which comprises of representations of the Ark's various factions. So you get this really cool bit where Helbane has to, because he's in charge, because Malarian allows him to be in charge, but he also still needs to bend to the will of the councils. Now, the Council of Reavers is 12 different, and the other one is 7. So it kind of talks about these sort of meetings that they're going to have, that from a Games Master point of view, yes, you've got the captain, but there's an awful lot of politics that is going to go into here. We then get a little bit more of a breakdown of some of the fleets and the Corsairs, as well as some notable Reavers in here, so different captains of different ships. As we get further towards the back, some of these have got stats, some of them haven't, because it depends on really whether they are a captain on another ship. So if you're going to involve that in the ship, you're going to have to sort of create the stats. Good news is, once we get to the Bestiary, it will take you through creating Dark Elves of different sort of careers and things like that. So it's got the sort of template you can build from. So if you're concerned how you would run an adventure in here, this is kind of the section that's going to help you as a games master, the civilian and captives. Because as vast as this ship is, it is a ship still full of merchants and artisans. So it's not just going to be exclusive Dark Elves on here. There are also a lot of captives down the bottom, so you could run the campaign from the players already being captive on here. You know, wake up, that classic. I'm not a fan of it, but people do like those classic, you know, you wake up a prison and then you've got to try and escape and work backwards. There are other ways of doing that, and obviously, you know, if you're not a Dark Elf, you can still interact on the ship, which naturally then brings you into getting on board the ship. So you've got different ways of getting on, so you can negotiate with the Maze of Mist, mooring alongside the Dart from the Ark, boarding it, or be taken captive. Depending on where the players are and what type of location it will be, will determine the encounter that comes out on the table here. And also, depending what race they choose to be, will determine how good or bad the reactions are going to be. So again, I don't really want to spoil the table, but it's got a guide down here. So A, B, C, and D gives you an idea of different areas of the ships. And then you're going to roll a D100. And then you'll find out who they meet, if at all anyone, and then you've got the reaction, which is going to go on a D10 roll here. And then it's a little bit more on the dark reactions as well, and then talking to Dark Elves, how to sort of deal with them. You know, it talks about, you know, because Dark Elves they're so eloquent conversationalists, but they tend to be, because they're long life, they tend to be condescending. Some of them are witty, some are persuasive, and some of them are threatening or mercurial. So it's going to give you hints and tips on how to do it. We've got some events that it's going to go over on here, which again is going to make that arc feel a bit more of a living place, as well as it goes through the 4 different seasons as well. So the seasons of blood, despair, decadence, and savagery. Okay, taking on the Black Ark, it's going to give you 2 different campaign settings here, and it gives you, I think they're both into 5 parts. We've got the Seaborn Citadel, which focus on the Temple of Spite, primarily as the setting where the characters must survive a hostile city far out at sea. Or we get On the Black Tides, showcasing the Ark's warbands as they plan an invasion onto the Empire. So the first one, yeah, is 5 parts. The second one, it is 5 parts as well. Yeah, okay, well remembered by myself. We're then going to look at the Bestiary, and this is going to take you through not only creatures and monsters that's going to come form part of the menagerie, but it's really talking about Dark Elves, the psychology between Dark Elves, their language, talking about their upbringing, and then we get this basic, I say basic in bunny ears, profiles for Dark Elves. So how to create a Dark Elf, got Dark Elf Highborn, Dark Elf City Lowborn, then Dark Elf Wilderness Lowborn as well. We then get a load of creatures like Dark Pegasus in here, Cold Ones, War Hydras, Manticores, because coming up with the menagerie, these things in here. There are harpies on here, because when you look at the towers, part of the tower's got it holds a chunk of harpies as well. We've got Howldrakes in here. But once we then get into creating specific Dark Elves, this is the rule that's going to add it. So we've got these templates here where you want to, is it Druchii Warrior? I think it's pronounced a Druchii Elite, Reaver Captains, Warriors, Elites, Officers, Corsairs. So this is just going to give you the percentage, well, the percentage was technically percentages, isn't it? The pluses and the skill bonuses you're going to get, whether you want it to be a Bloodshade or an Assassin, based on whether, you know, you're going to go a standard Dark Elf, Highborn, Lowborn, or Witch Elf, which they were quite good in Blood Bowl. That's really all my knowledge of Dark Elves. I've never really ran a Dark Elf campaign or used them in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplaying over all these years. You know, I've had a little bit of one, sort of teased or had maybe one, but not to the extent of the information that's in here. And finally, obviously, we get the Beastmasters in here, which are going to be really helpful when we create the menagerie characters. Ships and equipment. So this is going to talk you through specific Dark Elf weapons. So some of them will be listed here. So things like the Spine Blade, and it's got its prices and costs in here. But then we've got something like a Drach. The Drach is a class of heavy two-handed bladed wielded by the Cain-appointed executioners. And it just basically says if you're going to use it, you use either the Great Axe or the Spyhander in here. And variety is say different weapons, repeated crossbows, hand crossbows. And it's got all the prices in gold coins in here too. I'll just scroll back a second. One thing that annoyed me, because it always annoyed, the currency in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplaying, it does bother me, because I like it to be units of 10. But to further complicate things, the Temple of Spite, basically the money is in silver moons, and 1 silver moon is equal to 8 gold coins. But it does list everything in gold coin prices, which makes it easier, but you're going to have to further convert it if you really want to get into the sort of atmosphere of the game. We've got a variety of armor, so we've got the Sea Dragon cloaks in here. Then, as you'd imagine, from the Dark Elves, variety of different poisons, from the Barvac, Black Lotus, Manbane. The section here on chariots kind of surprised me, because I wasn't expecting to see actual chariots, sort of wheeled chariots, in a sort of nautical campaign setting. But they are in here, and it just sort of like put reference to the Sea Wardens of Kothic, I think it's pronounced, on that book there as well. Just details then of some sailing ships. And then we get the Beast Hall weapons as well. So here's all the prices and costs in the table, as you'd expect from Cubicle 7. Chapter 6 is going to talk about dark magic. Now, you'd expect Dark Elf sorceresses, female sorcerers, to be the magic users. However, there is a little bit in here about male sorcerers, and no one likes them. They don't trust them. But you can, if you want to be a male sorcerer as opposed to a sorceress. But the magic itself is going to work in exactly the same way as magic works under the winds of magic in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplaying 4th edition. But thing to remember on this dark magic is you are going to get corruption when things go slightly wrong, and the miscast table is slightly harder in here, and you more likely, and if you fail it, you are going to get dark complications as well. But the spells are fun, and I kind of going to read through a few, try not to spoil too many, but they are basically very sort of demonic in their essence, and as a games master, you're going to have fun with these. I'm not sure I'd want my players to run with them, just because the amount of corruption they're going to take with the spell casting. But let's look at the Dark Hand of Destruction. A dense cloud of violent and baleful black energies rolls about the sorcerer's hands. It's a magic missile with a damage of plus 12. All non-magical armor on struck hit location is ignored and destroyed. That is just for 5. That is pretty nasty. Disturbing voices. It's one target, and the duration is 1d10 hours. Okay, so the sorcerer's opens as tiny rents in reality, allowing malicious entities to whisper in the target's ears, urging paranoia, a sense of betrayal. Roll three times on the mental corruption table and apply the results for 1d10 hours. That is nasty, and they just get progressively horribler, and just this is everything I'd expect from dark magic. And then to make things worse, if you want to get Gifts of Cain, so if you get the talent of Gift of Cain in here, anytime a character draws blood from an opponent using a melee weapon, they can make a challenge 0 weapon skill test and use the Gift of Cain as a free action. And then some of these things, depending on how many success levels you try and get, will determine. So let's go the Dance of Doom. A Cainite makes a dramatic flourish to cast the gore from the weapon in the air. They dance to the blood and flesh as it falls upon them. They add 2 success levels to any dodge test they make the next turn. And then we'll just pick on Hidden Blade here. Partly obscured by the spray of blood, the dagger strikes from an impossible angle. Counts as an additional free attack, so it's free to do it. You get a bonus free attack from using the dagger using a Cainite's melee basic skill. Gifts of Cain, very, very good. Okay, so we're halfway through the book, pretty much. So the rest of the book is the 7 factions. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on these factions, but the first one we're going to look at is Valerian's Black Sword. So these are the mercenary company that fight for pay and go and grab prisoners and stuff like that. Hence the reason we've got the prison rules in here. Their main goal is just wealth, reputation, and an exciting life. That's all they want to do. Go out, drink, gain money, have fun. But each faction will have things like how the interaction of meeting them, the rivals and allies, so who they like on the ship, who they dislike on the ship. The disposition will give you an idea of how many are in there. So this faction, there's 130 of them, and it's broken down from captains to commanders and things like that. So it's all detailed in here. Their appearance, where they're going, where you would meet them on the ship itself. And then we've got 3 different encounters from easy, medium, and hard. And then finally, you're going to close down each of these sections with some. So here we've got the captain and the assassin. I love this. The assassin of Cain and business manager. I just love the thought of that on your business card. What do you do? Oh yeah, I'd probably put business manager first, and then just put the assassin at the end. We're then going to get the foul brethren, and these are the loyal crew on the Temple of Spite. Again, we're going to get. I'm not going to repeat myself on each of these. We've then got the Glass Thorn. So these are the spies in the area. So if ever they want to send any information out off on the ships, they're going to have all the spies in here as well. And as I said, like when you're looking at them, so each of these characters, again, they've got adventure hooks. There's just so much in here. And then we get Cain's Eyes, which are the cruel, indispensable scouts and guerrilla fighters on the Temple of Spite. We then get the Scale Flayers Menagerie. These are my favourites. These are the Beastmasters. So these will look after. Do you remember we looked at the sort of beast section in the ship itself? So they are in here, and it's just going to take you through, the High Beastmaster. The High Beastmaster's actually on one of the councils as well, and this is where you're going to start interacting backwards and forwards through the book. And don't forget, again, 3 different encounters for these. The Company of Nightwake is actually a separate ship, so it actually travels around, and these goals are quite the same. So they want to acquire wealth. This made me laugh when I was reading through these earlier. Make profit, acquire desirable goods, and grow the fleet. So 3 of those pretty much are, we just want to go out and take stuff, and then we'll grow the fleet. But if you do the first 3, you're probably going to have the money to grow the fleet. So that's quite interesting in there. So we then get the captain stats and, variety of different hooks. And then you get the really vicious religious sort of zealots. These are sort of like the Knives of Cain, that basically they just want to go around sacrificing things. So they're very warmongery, but they do want to sacrifice. I thought it's quite interesting on the disposition, because there's only 15 of them, and then they've got another 5 executioners in there. So they're quite a small faction, but I think from a games master point of view, they're going to be quite fun to include. We then get some details on the Cult of Cain, and then we're finally into the Patreons. So here we got Duriath Helbane himself, who you can run as either as a nemesis or a Patreon here. Death Hag Kalita, I think that is. And then finally we've got Grim Witch, which is a fugitive sorcerer. And then the book is going to end on Index. Okay, and that is it. That is it. There's actually so much in here from a games master's point of view of things that you can do. My initial thoughts were when I was sent this, I was like, oh, I really wanted a Dark Elf adventure module. Well, I didn't. I wanted a sort of lore guide, really. But there's a lot of lore. Say those first sort of 6 to 8 pages. There's a lot of lore in there. And there's a fair bit about the sort of island and stuff. Not a huge amount, but enough to sort of get you going in the background into elves. There's lots of pages in there about running elves as a games master. Kind of hints that you probably shouldn't let a player play one because, as you saw, there isn't really the stats in there to actually play a Dark Elf, but I'd imagine it's coming in the Dark Elf book. I was surprised. I didn't think I was going to like this. Because my big worry was, here we go, we've got this big, massive vessel that floats around the sea, sort of killing and attacking things. How can that be interesting? But Cubicle 7 have still managed to make this really interesting, purely because you've got 2 campaigns built within the book. And depending on how you want to run them, or how you want to run your players, really, will determine which campaign you go with. You know, do you have that sort of intrigue and stuff on the ship? Or do you have them on the ship where they're waiting to go and attack something and then the players need to try and stop what's going on? How do you stop a ship that's a giant city with thousands of Dark Elves that don't even like you on there? There's so much sort of intrigue and fun in here. But more importantly, if you don't want to run it that way, let's say from an ongoing sort of antagonist, I think this is really, really interesting. That you could have players over time hear about the stories of this ship, and depending on where they go, they're gonna start seeing the devastation of the ship out there, and we're gonna start seeing more and more of the Dark Elves stuff. But I think this is now, because if you think about the High Elf books, we had 2 High Elf books quite quickly. The 2 Dwarf books came out together. So hopefully we're now going to get that Dark Elf guide, which will then give us how to play a Dark Elf. That is something I cannot wait for. And then the Wood Elf book. I want the Wood Elf book as well. But hopefully you'll see there's plenty in here for a games master. There's lots in here. So you've got a whole campaign setting if you want to do it. But more importantly, you can just build this into your campaign quite easily, and then make the players get on the ship, and then just go sail out to the sea, and then you can kind of, well, have a lot of fun with them, because you're not going to need anything else once they're stuck on that ship for a while, and you've got everything you want in 128 pages. So that's it. That is my look at Temple of Spite by Cubicle 7. Say it's available for pre-order now. Physical copies, I think it was Q3. It said later this year. Probably Q4, just because of the way things work out. But yes, if you want to get a physical copy of this, pre-order it direct with Cubicle 7. Now, they will send you the PDF copy as well immediately there through a link to DriveThruRPG. If you want just the PDF, you can either get it direct from Cubicle 7, or you can do me a favour, help my channel grow by using my affiliate link. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.